That's right, folks. Completely unsinkable. Get back! Get back! I said no refunds. July 25th, 1956, the Italian luxury ocean liner steamship, the SS Andrea Doria, collides with the Swedish passenger liner motorship, the Ms. Stockholm, in heavy fog. It kills 51 people. Titanic 2. Well, technically Titanic 3 if you count the Eastland in 1915, but this video is already long enough, so we won't. The SS Andrea Doria was named after the 16th century Genoese admiral, Andrea Doria. And the Ms. Stockholm was presumably named by just throwing a dart at a picture of European cities. A map. Those are called maps. My name is Ben, and I'm here to drink wine and tell you about sad boat things that happen to rich people. I think I'll start with a glass of port and then move on to a glass of starboard. Ha ha! That's an old nautical joke for you. Oh, this is gonna f you right up. 17%! So, the SS Andrea Doria is an Italian luxury liner that, while not the largest or the fastest vessel of her time, was notable for being super fancy. Fun fact I never knew. Apparently, in the time between WW1 and WW2, 1920 to 1940, Italian cruise ships were like the nice cruise ships. This is like the Air Emirates of back in the day, I think. I had to Google how to finish this joke because I'm just so fiscally far away from knowing which the fancy airlines are. The thing about those fancy Italian cruise ships, though, is when the World War II rolls around, no one's really doing any cruising on account of all the U-boating. So, the Italian military confiscates them and turns the luxury cruise ships into military craft. And then they're either mostly captured or destroyed. Because, while bitchin', water slides don't stop torpedoes. Well, fast forward to 1949 and Call of Duty World at War is over. And Italy is once again gunning for the #1 spot in rich people boat rides. So, they get to work on building the Andrea Doria, completing it in 1951. Just one more thing. They also commissioned a sister ship, the Cristoforo Colombo, named after Christopher Columbus. But unfortunately, nothing bad happened to that one. They spared seemingly no expense, filling the Andrea Doria with art, sculptures, ceramics, and paintings, which I believe are also art. It was to represent the legacy of Italy. They had dining rooms, ballrooms, swimming pools, and apparently a life-size bronze statue of that admiral guy they named it after, Andy D. Also, apparently they had ocean segregation laws back then. For once though, not race segregation. There was a 3-tiered system which was basically rich, medium, and poor. And they had 3 separate sections on the boat because they were not allowed to mix. So all those amenities I mentioned, they had to have 3 copies of everything. All aboard the separate but equal life of Zack and Cody. Also a 50-car garage, which feels strange to me, but hey, they had at least 1 car aboard the Titanic. So I guess it was just a thing. Hey, quick, what's a pirate's favorite letter? You think it'd be R, but it's the C. Now, what's a pirate's favorite button? It's the subscribe button. Unlike the Titanic, they had enough lifeboats for all 1,700 people on board. 16 big-ass lifeboats, 8 on either side. And 11 sealable watertight compartments that went all the way up to the A deck. And the ship could allegedly keep floating, even if 2 of the compartments were punctured. What went wrong? Well, it turns out the ship is basically the same as your average League of Legends player.
Easily tilted.
The model tilted, the maiden voyage tilted. If it saw a wave, it tilted. Even the promotional material makes it look typical as shit, and it's a 2-dimensional drawing. Probably because they filled the boat with a bunch of f***ing cars and bronze statues. It gets worse. Those 11 watertight compartments I just mentioned, sealed all the way up to the A deck? This was the A deck. Silly me for thinking to be at the top. So if there's a leak, and the ship starts to lean, a thing that usually happens when there's a leak, and it hits more than 20 degrees, the water's just gonna go over the top of the compartment it's in and then into the next one. And oh look now, more leak. Well, that's bad, but hey, thank God we have all those lifeboats. Oh no, it turns out if the ship is more than 15 degrees off base, which is basically one of its hobbies at this point, it can no longer deploy the lifeboats on that side of the ship. So half of the lifeboats might as well not even exist. So to summarize the SS Andy D, if everything is fine, everything will keep going fine. If anything goes wrong, then everything else will very quickly also go wrong. Honestly, I get it. Ooh, forgot to bring this tidbit up. The SS Andy D is also super prone to tilting when its fuel tanks are mostly empty, which is usually near the end of its journey. So, the SS Andy D is near the end of its journey, about 50 miles from Nantucket, Massachusetts. And its fuel tanks are almost empty. Technically, they could have, and should have, pumped seawater into the empty tanks to help keep it balanced, as per the company and designer's instruction. But if you do that, it makes refueling more expensive. So they didn't. All right, it's about 11 p.m. at night, and the SS Andy D is basically going full steam through a fog bank. It can't see anything, so the faster you go, the sooner you get out of it safely. Andy D's headed towards the United States, and at the same time, the Ms. Stockholm, heading from the US to Europe, is just entering the fog bank. And due to only being able to see the Andrea Doria a little bit sort of, they mistakenly assume the Andrea Doria is either very small or very far away. It was neither of those things. And it's still going full steam ahead. Side note, I may have forgotten to mention the Ms. Stockholm is also a passenger ship, but it's about half the size of the Andrea Doria, which makes the outcome of this real embarrassing. So the two ships finally realize they're heading right towards each other. And you know when you're about to bump into someone and you both kind of do that awkward shuffle where you both go left and then you both go right, and you're kind of like, okay, who's going where here? But in this instance, you both weigh between 15 and 30,000 tons, so you kind of really just get the one shuffle. And then you kind of have to just keep going that way. Well, they do that. So the Ms. Stockholm goes right, in accordance with boat law and the pirate code. And the SS Andy D goes left, because apparently that was more of a boat guideline than an actual boat law. It's definitely a rule now, though. People got sick of dumb shit like this happening and then codified it in 1972. Anyway, so the Ms. Stockholm veers off to avoid the collision and just go about their day. And then, from their perspective, the other ship just veers directly in front of them anyway, like it's fixing to make an insurance claim. They slam right into the right starboard side of the Andy D. And basically that's when 46 of the 51 casualties happen right off the bat, because they just got hit with an entire boat. The other 5 either died during the evacuation or as a result of their injuries later on. One casualty that didn't happen, 14-year-old Linda Morgan, dubbed the Miracle Girl by the media. So get this, she was in bed, on the Andy D, in one of the upper rooms. And then, the ships crashed into each other. The impact threw her out of her bed, out of her bedroom, and onto the deck of the other ship. Like, put yourself in her shoes here. You're a teenage girl, you're on a boat, you've had a long day relaxing by the pool. You brush your teeth, and then you lay down in bed, hoping that you don't dream about that creepy statue. Next, you have a dream that you're being fired out of a very large catapult. Next thing you know, you're outside, and you're on a boat, but it's a different boat. Where did this boat come from? Why are you on it? Why does your face hurt? Did the statue follow you? Back to the boats. So at this point, the damage has been done. The Ms. Stockholm has absolutely rocked the Sandy D, and exactly 2 of those watertight compartments are punctured. The number they said it would be okay to puncture. But the ship immediately decided to do that tilting thing, because why wouldn't it? And now shit is literally going sideways. They hit that 20-degree tilt in like the first 5 minutes. So now there's water everywhere. Within 30 minutes of the impact, the captain gives out the abandoned ship order and starts sending out distress calls. Which again, abandoning ship would have been just fine, but geometry. So now half of the lifeboats are unusable. Great. Also, because the ship is going like this, people can't just hop into the lifeboats. They gotta lower them down into the water first and then climb in. So that's really slowing things down. The captain of the Ms. Stockholm figures they're okay and backs it on up. He hops on the intercom and probably just gives the most unsettling reassurance to the passengers. Everything's under control, situation normal. We had a slight boat malfunction, but everything's perfectly fine now. Everything's perfectly all right. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you? So now he's sure he's okay, and the passengers have been mostly reassured they're gonna be okay. So he gets to rescuing, sending out some of his own lifeboats for survivors. Hell, the Stockholm's already rescued one person by accident at this point. He's on a roll. But they're only half of the size of the Andy D by tonnage and rated for a quarter of the passengers, so they can only do so much. This is when an absolutely beautiful show of maritime humanity happened. 5 other ships got the distress call and showed up to help. It was a mixture of military and civilian commercial vessels. And all 5 of them, they're bailing people out from the Andy D with their own personal lifeboats. But the thing is, all these ships are tiny in comparison. They're stocked and staffed for between a couple dozen and a couple hundred people, tops. The cruise ship is 1,700. That's where the real MVP of our story shows up. The SS Isle de France. En route from New York back to Europe, it was 40 miles to the right, east of the collision. Originally, the captain got the distress call relayed from the other ships, and he didn't actually believe they were in trouble, on account of how big and fancy and modern the Sandy D was, because it had just been built a few years ago. For comparison, his ship, the SS Isle de France, was 35 years old. But the other ships radio back and they're like, oh no, they're super fucked. So, the captain of the SS Isle de France flipped a U and headed on over. Now, while older, the SS Isle de France was a f***ing beast. It was one of the largest and fastest ships in the entire North Atlantic at the time. In tonnage, it was half again larger than the Sandy D. It was faster, and it could hold almost 1,000 more people. And she was running light, only about half full of passengers at the time. In terms of intramural cruise ship dodgeball, the SS Isle de France is getting picked first every time. And it's on the way to help. Back to the crash. Rescue efforts are underway, but complicating things. It's the dead of night, and it's black as shit. And, well, I'm not sure if I explicitly stated this, they're in the middle of the ocean. Where the ocean is. It's not a swimming pool. There's just massive waves, constant gusts of wind, and the fog bank that caused all this is still sticking around. Visibility is limited, and it's making shit real difficult for those little lifeboats. The other 5 ships are there to help, but there's only so much they can do. There's just too many people on board the Andrea Doria. There's people in the water, and none of the other ships are equipped to deal with this. There's over a dozen lifeboats now, shuttling survivors to the other ships that have arrived. But they're all too small to make a dent in the number of passengers. They're meant to rescue tens of people at a time, not hundreds. The Andrea Doria is listing further and further to its side, and they don't know how much time they have left. And they have every element of the ocean fighting against them. And then all of a sudden, the fog clears, the wind and the waves die down, and a massive, shining beacon, larger even than the Andrea Doria herself, appears. Like a glorious guardian angel cutting through the darkness of the night, illuminating everyone and everything. It's the SS Isle de France with its massive swinging They arrive right as the fog clears. The captain takes a look at the ongoing shit show, and he parks his ship so that the sheer size of it is sheltering all of the other smaller ships from the wind and the waves. Then, he orders every single light on the SS Isle de France to be turned on, illuminating the darkness. To the terrified survivors of the Andrea Doria, and even their rescuers, this must have felt like a borderline biblical intervention. It was also like the only good thing that happened to him in the past 4 hours. Just going from, oh God, this is just like the Titanic. We're all gonna die, just like the Titanic. Why did I even bother living through World War II? And then just flipping over to, oh, God's decided that he wants us to live. Also, he's French? Their new god, captain of the SS Isle de France, scrambles all 10 of his lifeboats. The big off meant for a ship with 2,500 people lifeboats. They grab all the remaining passengers, as well as taking in some from the lifeboats from the other ships. All in all, rescuing 753 people. The next greatest stave was the Ms. Stockholm herself, rescuing 545 people, which, I mean, is kind of the least they could do when you think about it. But turns out, about 234 of those 500 plus people they saved were just crew members of the SS Andy D, who had just hopped in a lifeboat and bailed like 5 minutes after everything started. Not even trying to save passengers, 5 minutes in, we're out of here. So, knee-jerk reaction, boo those guys? But also, like, if I worked in an Applebee's with the same customers for a week straight, where everyone just treats me like an ocean butler the whole time, and all of a sudden the Applebee's starts to sink, I don't know how motivated I'm going to be to try and save anyone, except maybe the line cook that sells me weed sometimes. So, everyone is saved, minus the dead ones, by about 4 a.m. And the captain finally abandons ship around 6 a.m. with the SS Andrea Doria finally saying what up to Davy Jones, sinking on July 26th at 10 a.m. And all of the remaining ships head back to the east coast of the United States to drop off their new passengers, including the Ms. Stockholm, the front of which looked like this. Just turned around and sailed home. That's insane. Like, if you showed me a picture of both ships and then asked me to guess which one sank, I would pick the wrong one. I guess some ships are just built different. Oh. Butt's asleep. I'm taking a 5-second vape break.
Shit.
Porty. The Swedish Ms. Stockholm, while already being 10 years old and having just ended another boat's life, is not put out to pasture, and instead continues to be used for the next 71 years, under a series of different names and nationalities. After sailing back to the East Coast, it is repaired and then later sold to Eastern Germany in 1960. So it's just floating around on the wrong side of the Cold War now. In 1968, it rams into a submarine boat. In 1983, it rams into an actual submarine. This boat has got a taste for boat blood, and now it wants more. Its ownership bounces around a couple more times, and hey look, now it's in Italian hands. Imagine that. Now they want to convert it from an irregular cruise ship to a luxury cruise ship. And in 1993, it's towed to a shipyard in Genoa, where the Andrea Doria was built. Awkward, but also an absolute power move. The Genoan press labels her the ship of death. And, during the conversion, it's discovered that the Stockholm is actually in pretty good condition, despite being 45 years old at this point and ramming into fucking everything. In 2005, it finally rolled back into New York, and the New York Times wrote an article about it where they called it a death ship, and then said, quote, "It's like the convict sentenced to 50 years for murder who completes his sentence and then revisits the scene of the crime. It's been 50 years at this point." There have been actual murderers that have gotten less scrutiny than this. In 2008, the Stockholm was attacked by pirates off the coast of Somalia and fought them off. Due to random debts, it is repeatedly impounded and then sold off several times over the next 17 years. And finally, as of July 4th, 2025, it's been towed to Belgium and is awaiting being scrapped. I'd meant this to be a quick aside. I didn't realize I was reading the life story of the goddamn Dos Equis ship. In total, 51 people passed away from the collision and sinking of the SS Andrea Doria, which isn't great, but the original ship's roster had 1,700 people on it, so that's this success rate. The death number, weirdly, keeps going up. The wreck has actually been nicknamed the Mount Everest of scuba diving. Not because of the depth, but because of the sheer body count. Apparently the SS Sandy D, sunk to a depth of 49 meters, which puts it in the technical diving category of depth. Which, if you ask people online, they'll tell you that so long as you do everything right, technical diving is no more dangerous than regular diving. But we're glossing over the fact that there is way more stuff you have to make sure you do right if you don't want to die. You gotta have the right equipment. You gotta have the right backup equipment. It's all gotta work. You gotta be able to find it when you're in the dark, and you don't know which way is up, and you're in the middle of drowning. You go down too fast, you die. You go up too fast, you die. Breathe the wrong thing, you die. Breathe the wrong amount of that thing, you die. Get lost, you die. One of those things you gotta breathe is helium, which last I checked, we're running out of. If I had to pick one thing to squander the world's remaining supply of helium on, it would probably be for that big-ass Snoopy balloon, not some dead dude in a wetsuit. That would make for a real shitty parade. There's a lot of factors that make the Andrea Doria wreck site so deadly. It's real deep, I already covered that. There's mad powerful underwater currents in the area. They can just sweep you away and disorient you, or just make you burn through the incredibly finite amount of air you have, just fighting against them. The whole thing's decaying and falling apart, so it makes it super easy to get lost inside of. Or you just kick up a little bit of dirt and it completely blinds you. There's boatloads of cables and just commercial fishing net trash like all over the boat. And they can just grab you and hold you there until you die. Also, apparently the Andrea Doria is described as an extremely noisy wreck. Between the currents, the accelerated decay, and just like scraps of metal pieces floating around, and then like the metal frame of the ship itself just settling. So essentially the ship's ghost is just constantly screaming at you, which would scare me to death, so just another way for the ship to kill you. I know that last bit came off as like a little bit of anti-diver propaganda. I'm not anti-diver. I think diving's cool. I played through all of Subnautica and Below Zero. Hell, I made maps. But I never played in hardcore mode because, much like the Andy D, if you die there, you die in real life. The divers that didn't die have just been constantly picking the wreck clean of anything not nailed down. Also things that are nailed down. Also just the nails. Things grab include a whole bunch of china, an entire safe, and that creepy statue. The ship's stern bell was picked off in 1980. Apparently for divers, the ship's bell is like their version of the Predator skull trophy. Apparently, Stockton Rush and the Oceangate Cyclops 1 dropped by in 2016 and took several photos and videos available on their website. Oh. Well, of his experience, Stockton Rush noted, "When you look at the shape of the hull, it appears a lot has come off. One of the pieces now broken off the wreck is part of the ship's bow, which broke off when Stockton Rush crashed the Cyclops 1 into part of the ship's bow, and then apparently got stuck. And instead of handing the PlayStation controller off to the more qualified pilot on board, he started to try and hide it. Like an older brother that didn't want to let his younger brother play too. It was a whole thing. Turns out there were signs the whole time." And thus concludes the episode that I'm pretty sure I titled Titanic 2. Assuming I didn't think of a different thing after I finished filming this. I have long held the belief that there are very provable correlations between early childhood interest in the Titanic and autism. Because what are boats if not the trains of the ocean? I myself had a light to medium interest in the Titanic as a child. My little brother, super into it. Now, guess which one of us is worse at eye contact? I'll give you a hint. You're right. I'm not really sure what this 30-minute monstrosity of a video says about me, but hey, if you're still here, you probably had a good time. Why not throw a little like or subscribe down there? Or a comment? Tell me how you feel about boats, or diving, or sharks, or... I can't really think of anything else. Oh well, thanks for coming. Good night!